The betrayal behind enemy lines. The mystery of Henri Déricourt between March 1943 and February 1944. 43 Allied secret agents were smuggled into German-occupied France by air. Their mission: to wreak havoc behind enemy lines through sabotage, assassination, and disruption. Everyone involved understood the danger, but few could have predicted just how perilous it would be. Unknown to the agents, their entire network had been infiltrated by the Gestapo, the German secret police. Waiting for them was a trap that would cost hundreds of lives, agents who were either executed or perished in Nazi prison camps. The question remained: how had this catastrophic failure occurred? Why had the network collapsed so thoroughly? Was it sheer bad luck, poor security practices, or something far more sinister? At the heart of this mystery lies one man: Henri Déricourt. Some believed Déricourt was a double agent, a traitor working for the Germans. "When I first saw him, my heart sank," recalled one observer. "He was not a man I could trust." Others suggest an even darker possibility: that Déricourt betrayed these agents not to the Germans, but to a rival British intelligence agency. Could this have been an internal power struggle with deadly consequences? As one witness chillingly recounted, "A colleague of mine remembered Claude Danzy rubbing his hands with delight when one of the SOE networks collapsed." This is the extraordinary story of Henri Déricourt, a man accused of being both a double and possibly a triple agent, and his role in one of the most devastating intelligence failures of World War II. France falls. Resistance rises on June 14, 1940. Hitler's armies marched into Paris. The French government surrendered, and the country was divided into two zones: the north, ruled by the Nazis, and the south, controlled by a collaborationist regime based in Vichy. Thousands of refugees fled the advancing German forces. Some retreated to the forests and hills, forming the resistance. Others, like Charles de Gaulle, escaped abroad, with many finding sanctuary in Britain. Among these refugees was Henri Déricourt. His arrival in Britain was facilitated by an escape route organized by MI6, also known as the Secret Intelligence Service, SGS. Déricourt claimed to have been a pilot for Air France, and even asserted that British intelligence had once invited him to fly for them in 1936. This, however, was a lie. SIS quickly uncovered the fabrication, but instead of treating him with suspicion, they inexplicably recommended him to another secret organization, SOE, the Special Operations Executive. This marked the first of many peculiar decisions involving Déricourt and SGS, decisions that would have grave consequences. SOE. Setting Europe ablaze, the SOE, created by Winston Churchill, was tasked with waging covert war in occupied Europe. Their mission, as Churchill famously stated, was to set Europe ablaze. Espionage, sabotage, and assassination became their tools of warfare. France, as a key battleground, saw the establishment of numerous SOE networks working alongside the French resistance. These networks were managed by SOE's F section, led by Maurice Buckmaster. Buckmaster, like many in SOE leadership, owed his position more to social connections than military expertise. Educated at the elite Eton College and with a background in business, Buckmaster faced the immense challenge of managing clandestine operations in one of Europe's most dangerous territories.
Henri Déricourt, savieur or saboteur?
Déricourt, a skilled pilot, quickly found himself entrusted with a crucial role in SOE operations. He was tasked with facilitating clandestine flights into and out of France, ferrying agents and supplies while maintaining contact with resistance networks. However, doubts about his loyalty began to emerge. Reports suggest that Déricourt had suspiciously close ties with the Gestapo. Some believed he was providing the Germans with intelligence on SOE operations, leading to devastating losses. His defenders argued that he was acting under orders from SS, which may have been using him to protect their own operations at the expense of SOE. This rivalry between British intelligence agencies, SOE and STS, remains one of the most controversial aspects of the case. Did Déricourt betray SOE agents to the Germans to serve SS interests? Or was he simply a double agent playing a dangerous game with lives on the line? A network collapses as agents continued to disappear, the scale of the infiltration became clear. By early 1944, the once formidable SOE network in France was in tatters. Hundreds of brave men and women had been captured or killed, their missions ending in tragedy. The collapse raised haunting questions. Was Déricourt a traitor, a pawn, or something in between? Did internal conflicts within British intelligence doom these missions? And most chillingly, could it have been prevented? The mystery endures. The story of Henri Déricourt is a haunting reminder of the murky world of wartime espionage, where trust was scarce and betrayal often fatal. Whether he was a double agent, a scapegoat, or a pawn in a larger game, his actions or inactions changed the course of SOE's operations in France, leaving a legacy of suspicion and tragedy. Was Henri Déricourt truly the villain of this tale, or was he just one piece of a much larger, darker puzzle? Let us know your thoughts, and thank you for exploring this extraordinary chapter of World War II history. The role of Henri Déricourt in SOE's covert operations in the early days of the Special Operations Executive, SOE, its recruitment relied heavily on personal connections. Potential agents and officers were often chosen from familiar circles, schoolmates or university friends, people whose discretion and reliability were already known. Maurice Buckmaster, the head of SOE's French section, F section, faced an immediate logistical challenge, transporting agents in and out of German-occupied France. This critical task relied on RAF Lysander aircraft, but suitable landing sites were proving elusive. Resistance members, often untrained, selected landing grounds that were boggy, obstructed by trees, or otherwise unsuitable, leading to cancelled flights and mounting frustrations. As Buckmaster wrestled with this problem, Henri Déricourt emerged. Described as one of the few Frenchmen with the necessary aviation expertise to identify suitable landing sites, Déricourt was introduced to SOE despite concerns about his trustworthiness. Vera Atkins, Buckmaster's close assistant, recalled her reservations vividly. "When I saw him, my heart sank. He wasn't someone I felt I could trust." Despite these misgivings, Déricourt had a strong advocate in Nicholas Boddington, Buckmaster's deputy. Having known Déricourt from pre-war Paris, Boddington vouched for his usefulness. This endorsement fast-tracked Déricourt's entry into SOE, where he became the air movements officer for northern France. Tasked with organizing the passage of agents and equipment, his role would soon become indispensable as Allied operations intensified. 1943. Escalation and deception. By the winter of 1942, the tide of war was turning. Hitler's invasion of Russia had stalled, with 100,000 German troops trapped in the ruins of Stalingrad. At the Casablanca Conference in January 1943, Soviet leader Joseph Stalin pressured the Western Allies to open a second front in Europe to alleviate the burden on the Eastern Front. However, Britain and the United States were still locked in fierce battles in North Africa and lacked the resources for a full-scale European invasion before 1944. In response, Winston Churchill and Franklin D. Roosevelt devised an elaborate deception plan, Operation Cockade. The operation aimed to convince Germany that an Allied invasion of France was imminent in November 1943, tying down enemy troops in the West and easing pressure on the Soviets. SOE was tasked with escalating its sabotage operations in northern France to lend credibility to the ruse. The Prosper Network and Déricourt's role at the heart of this effort was the Prosper Network, SOE's largest operation in France. Established in October 1942, Prosper connected hundreds of resistance cells, boasting a membership of approximately 1,500. Led by Francis Suttle, codenamed Prosper, the network played a vital role in SOE's ramped-up operations, galvanized by the false promise of a second front. Henri Déricourt, recently dropped into France, was instrumental in supporting Prosper's mission. By January 1943, he had set up reliable landing sites and organized the movement of agents and equipment. Operating from Paris, Déricourt arranged clandestine meetings in cafes, where a coded exchange with the barman would lead to contact with him. These efforts streamlined the comings and goings of Allied operatives, making him a key figure in SOE's activities in France. However, Déricourt's growing influence came with suspicions. His pre-war connections, along with his somewhat murky past and charm, raised doubts among colleagues like Atkins. Despite these reservations, his role became central to SOE's covert operations at a critical moment in the war. Henri Déricourt, the triple agent, and the fall of Prosper Henri Déricourt, SOE's air movements officer in northern France, became a central figure in one of the greatest intelligence tragedies of World War II. Operating in occupied France, he arranged clandestine transport for agents and equipment, establishing reliable landing sites and coordinating safe passage. Within weeks of his assignment, Déricourt successfully transported 22 agents in and out of France, earning praise for his effectiveness. Thanks to Déricourt's work, the Prosper Network, SOE's largest operation in France, was thriving. With over 1,500 members, dozens of hideouts, and numerous supply drops, the network conducted 63 acts of sabotage, derailing trains, and eliminating German targets. However, this flurry of activity drew the attention of the Gestapo, who began scouring the countryside for Prosper's agents. Conflict between SOE and SOE's high-profile sabotage missions clashed with the priorities of another British intelligence agency, SAS, Secret Intelligence Service, or MI6. While SOE's goal was to create chaos, SAS focused on stealthy intelligence gathering. The visible disruption caused by Prosper and SOE agents often attracted Gestapo patrols, endangering SIS operatives working nearby. This tension fueled resentment within SIS, particularly from Colonel Claude Danzy, a powerful and vocal critic of SOE's methods. The rivalry between SOE and SAS deepened when Déricourt unexpectedly became a bridge and a pawn between the two agencies. Déricourt's ties to the Gestapo in April 1943. Déricourt was temporarily recalled to England after an incident involving a near crash of an RAF Lysander aircraft. During this time, he reportedly visited SAS headquarters, where he revealed a shocking secret. He had close ties to Karl Bommelberg, the Gestapo's counterintelligence chief in Paris. This relationship dated back to pre-war Paris, where Déricourt had mingled with key figures on both sides of the intelligence divide. Déricourt admitted that he had been informing Bommelberg of SOE flight schedules and landing sites. In return, the Luftwaffe ensured safe passage for these flights, allowing the Gestapo to surveil agents after they landed. This arrangement enabled Bommelberg to gather intelligence on the Prosper network while avoiding immediate arrests. Déricourt, though not directly betraying agents, had placed their lives in jeopardy by facilitating the Gestapo's infiltration. Instead of alerting SOE, SAS instructed Déricourt to maintain his relationship with the Gestapo. Unaware of this duplicity, SOE sent him back to France in June 1943. The arrival of Noor Inayat Khan on June 16, 1943, Déricourt welcomed a new group of agents, including Noor Inayat Khan, codenamed Madeline. A descendant of Indian royalty, Noor was fluent in French and had volunteered for the Women's Auxiliary Air Force before being recruited by SOE as a wireless operator. Despite concerns about her suitability for such a dangerous mission, she was sent to Paris and quickly integrated into the Prosper network, transmitting critical information to London. However, the Prosper network was already compromised. The fall of Prosper on June 21, 1943, the Gestapo struck. 2 Canadian agents were arrested, and their car contained uncoded messages and the addresses of Prosper members. Within days, more addresses were raided, leading to the capture of Francis Suttle, Prosper, and other key operatives. The Germans even used a captured radio operator's transmitter to send false messages to SOE in London. Despite obvious signs of deception, including the omission of security codes, SOE failed to recognize the danger.